Hey, what's up, guys? It's WiseGuyVito here, and today I have another tier list for you guys, and this one will be on Orbitals against the Illuminate faction. At the recording of this video, the new patch just dropped, but none of the Orbitals got touched, like, at all, unless they made some secret changes, of course. But as far as things that have been mentioned in the patch notes, there seems to be nothing changed with Orbitals, so I feel comfortable enough kind of going over what orbitals are really, really good against the Illuminate faction and which ones are not so much. As always, like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate all the support that you guys have given me so far. Let's reach 1,000 subscribers in the near future. I believe that we can. I love the community that I've been able to, create and stuff like that. And comment down below what you guys think is the best orbitals and which ones you think are the not so great. So without further ado, let's get straight into the tier list. So before we start, let's go over the tiers real quick. S tier would be like, these are kind of like the meta picks in my opinion. If you're wanting to run level 10 difficulties with efficiency, these are the ones that you should be picking. A tier is above average performance. You can still run these at level 10. There might be one glaring issue with it, but for the most part, these are very, very solid orbitals that you can be using at level 10. B tier is kind of meh, in my opinion. These are kind of just average efficiency. You could still run these at level 10. Just know that you might need something else to kind of help it out a little bit. There might be one particular niche with this particular orbital, but for the most part, just average performance. C tier is below average. I would like to see some buffs to these orbitals, and we'll kind of go over which ones I think fall within this tier. And then D tier is Dookie tier. This is the bad tier. This is the there needs to be some reworks to this one, definitely. And these are just not really great against the Illuminate faction. So without further ado, let's get straight into the video. So the EMS orbital, I think it's kind of meh to be perfectly honest, but I'm gonna put in C tier. And that's kind of being charitable to it. It does stun a large area. I just think that if it's an orbital stun, it should be able to stun things like walkers and such, kind of like the bigger enemies in the Illuminate faction. And the fact of the matter is that it doesn't do that right now, and I think that is the buff that it really needs. That, and I can totally see Arrowhead. I can totally see Arrowhead balancing it in the way of, like, you have to take down the walker shields in order to stun walkers, if it could do that. And let's say if it was to stun walkers, or stun bigger enemies in the game on the Illuminate faction, if it had that buff, it probably would be like a B tier orbital, in my opinion. But for the time being, until they make some serious buffs to it, and serious buffs, I mean just the one buff, in that it can stun like bigger enemies, I just don't see the need in bringing this. And there's a reason why. I think that there is a orbital that overshadows it completely, and we'll kind of go over what orbital kind of overshadows like the EMS orbital. You can use this to stun massive waves of voteless and overseers and stuff like that. But in my opinion, I think that if you're going to take this as an orbital stun, it should be able to stun walkers. The napalm barrage, I actually do think these are S tier. Very good at just area of denial and applying dot damage to a very, 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 very large area. It can damage walkers depending on whether or not the actual napalm missile actually hits. But for the most part, this is just fantastic CC. And it's really good against overseers, and it's really, really good against voteless. It's just an overall, just a solid orbital, and you should definitely be using it at level 10 difficulties. 120, not bad, but I'm gonna put it in A tier. It's really just really good at handling ships for the most part. If you want a more concentrated area, then you use these. Has some CC capabilities as well, and it can handle walkers, but again, like, just RNG based in my opinion. Really, you're going to be bringing these for some crowd control capabilities, but also you're going to be using these to destroy like medium or small to sometimes maybe even large encampments of Illuminate ships. But in my opinion, I think that the 380 is actually the one that you should be using, and I do think that it's S tier. Fantastic CC, can handle walkers, and it can handle a more wider area for destroying ships and encampments. On defense missions, I see people use these two. Actually, use these three a lot. Actually, like the waves of enemies to send out the rockets, those type of defense missions where you have like the walls and such. In that case, it does. Like these three actually do pretty well. In my opinion, I think sentries do a way better job at just consistent, just blocking off of the enemy. But as far as just like the more or less kind of like the 40-minute missions, the longer missions, the blitz missions as well, I just think that this is just like the better option over the 120. Airburst, do find this to be very good. I just don't think it handles walkers all that well because, again, like they have the shields and such. Once you bring down the shields, it does do decent damage to them, but they just don't outright kill them. But this is fantastic for a low cooldown build, which is you can actually build into that if you like. Has great CC capabilities. The cadence of it has slowed, which is good because it no longer is doing 1, 2, 3. That used to be kind of like the cadence as before. It would just be 1, 2, 3, like that similar cadence. Now it does 1, 2, 3, and that's a way better cadence because it actually gives time for, let's say, if there's like an Illuminate drop happening or a squid drop, you can kind of throw this out there, and it can actually handle like kind of like the cadence of enemies dropping in as well, kind of like how bug breaches work. Me personally, I feel like this is better on bugs and automatons than Illuminate, but you can still use this and run it efficiently on level 10 difficulties. The one thing that I think is overshadowing the EMS orbital currently, I do think, is the gas. Gas is just very good. Orbital gas, low cooldown, fantastic at applying dot. Doesn't damage walkers, but that's fine. It's just the fact that you stop an entire mob of voteless from from getting the drop on you. Handles overseers very well as well, especially the flying ones. The flying ones can overrun you very, very quickly, and the gas strike is basically just a stun. To be perfectly honest with you, this is why I think that the EMS needs kind of something to kind of set it apart from the gas. But gas right now is just such in a good state that you should definitely seriously consider taking it with your loadouts, because it just, if you want to run super efficient runs, you want to bring some form of gas, and so that's why I'm putting it in S tier. The orbital laser, not gonna lie, I do think this thing is actually pretty good. I'm actually gonna put it on kind of like mid A in my opinion, and the reason why is it does very well at clearing. It does, and actually handles walkers pretty well. You kind of have to give it a little bit of help, but it does well against walkers. Does really good on ships as well. Has nice destructive power to it. I think my only problem with it is that I kind of think that it needs to have more uses to it, or just unlimited uses to it. Just give it, like the same cooldown, just give it unlimited uses, and I really don't think that'd be that overpowered. But it does very good CC. It burns as well. Handles overseers and voteless. It's just a solid orbital. Orbital railgun. I'm gonna actually put this in C tier. It does well against walkers sometimes. It doesn't outright just destroy walkers. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It has that consistency problem. I think that what it needs to do, in my opinion, is one, if a walker has a shield up, it should be able to cut through the shield first and foremost. I also think too that this thing it either needs a much lower cooldown than what it currently has, or it needs to have 3 separate orbital lasers going off at once with the same cooldown. And I think that it would actually be in a pretty good state at that point. But for the most part, it's not really that good of an orbital. It's much better on bots. It's actually probably better on Terminids as well. Even then, I would still probably put it in C tier, just because the Orbital Railgun has fallen off quite a bit, and I would like to see some major buffs to it. Orbital Smoke. If you watch my videos, I just don't think Smoke is in a good place. I don't think Stealth is in a good place right now for Helldivers. I know my Stealth divers are probably going to hate me for saying that. You guys let me know what you think about Stealth for the most part, but in my opinion, Stealth is just not where it should be right now, and Smoke is definitely not where it should be right now. Every time I see someone use Smoke, or if I use Smoke myself, I don't feel like it really does anything, and that's just from my experience. I could be using Smoke completely wrong. Again, you guys let me know down in the comment section, but every single time I try to use Smoke, it's just not that great. And I would like to see some reworks to Smoke, believe it or not, because in my opinion, why use Smoke again whenever I can use the Orbital Gas? Orbital Gas is effectively Smoke, except because you're blinding the enemy. You're blinding the enemy, and you're applying damage over time, and that's just really, really good. And you have that in grenade form as well. So why even use this whenever I can use the Orbital Gas? I would even say using the EMS strike is better than using the Smoke. I would, if I had a choice between Orbital Smoke or Orbital EMS, I'm going to take Orbital EMS every single time. If gas wasn't, at my fingertips, which, gas should be at your fingertips. So for the time being, I'm going to definitely put it in D tier. It definitely needs to see some reworks and buffs. Precision Orbital Strike, it's not that bad. I do feel like it's kind of fallen off a bit. Low cooldown would be good for low cooldown builds. It does some work against walkers. Again, it just depends on it just really depends on the placement of the Orbital Strike. You can have to time a little bit, and it does. It has a nice destructive power to it. So you destroy the shield of an Illuminate ship, throw this down, destroys it. It does fairly good work on that point. I'm gonna be kind of charitable to it. I'm gonna put it kind of in the average tier, because it does have some niche use cases for it, but it kind of just depends on the consistency of your throw. The Walking Barrage. Do think that this is A tier. This is not really for. I mean, you can use it for CC. You can. But in my opinion, this is kind of more or less kind of like a preemptive softening of the area that you'll be going through, going through. So if you know that there is an Illuminate, like a large Illuminate encampment of ships, throw this down. It just softens everything up, and you just do cleanup afterwards. That's it. What's there left to say about this? It's just a solid overall. Orbital Stratagem or Barrage, but like I said before, CC is kind of hit or miss. It's more or less sort of just what's coming up ahead. Throw this down, soften everything up, and then basically clean up afterwards. So that's why I'm putting it in A tier. It's actually a pretty solid pick. And the Gatlin Barrage or the Gatlin Orbital, I do think this is on the high end of A tier. Really good against. Kind of like softening up walkers, does really good CC as well, and does really good against overseers. And this is also a very good choice for a low cooldown build. Before gas was even buffed in the way that it is currently, I would run Gatlin Orbital Barrage and Airburst, and run that with an Eats and Commando rocket launcher. And I would just constantly have just something just to throw out on, something that I can control, of course, which would be like the Eats and the Commando for heavily armored targets. But also, if I needed something for CC control or mob control, then I would just throw one of these down, and then it would do the thing that I wanted to do, which is CC. And it does very, very well. So this is my tier list on Orbitals against the Illuminate faction. You guys let me know what you think down in the comment section below. I would love to hear what you guys have to say. As always, I appreciate the support. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.